Hello everybody, it is Carole Garrison with Carole's Creative Escape. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, have been doing this for 10 years, and my goal is to simply spread joy one card at a time. I am joining you for a Make It Monday tonight, even though it's Tuesday. I'll just start off by apologizing and then we're going to move on real quick from there. I had a bit of a family emergency yesterday. Had to have my 18-and-a-half-year-old cat Angel cross over the Rainbow Bridge, and it was just a rough afternoon and night, and I didn't think honestly I could be on a live video without bursting into tears. So Angel, for some of you that have been watching me for a while, are aware that Angel liked to join us occasionally in our videos here, and also you know, I want to make sure I'm going live in the right place. There I am. All right, sorry about that. She also joined my card classes on a very regular basis, generally choosing the person who is either allergic to cats or not as fond of cats. That was just kind of her personality. So we knew it was coming. She was 18-and-a-half-years old, but it's never easy the day that it happens. So we're just going to move on from there, but that is why I wasn't here yesterday. You know, other than that, over the weekend we did celebrate Cece's first birthday and had a fun party for her down at her house, and then also had a birthday party for my son, whose birthday is the day after Cece's birthday. So that was a fun way to celebrate the weekend, and now we're just getting ready for the holidays. We've got, I think it's 18 people coming to our house for dinner on Thursday. Thankfully, my husband is a very good cook. He's trained as a chef. Doesn't do it anymore, but he's very, very good at preparing particularly large meals, and that includes turkeys and things like that. So I kind of get the fun part of work setting up for Thanksgiving, and he does all of the cooking, which works fine for me. So while he's cooking tomorrow, I'll be busy cleaning the house and trying to get some cookies made for a cookie exchange. Anyway, that's been my week, and I hope everybody else has had in some ways a better week than how mine started, at least, and that you've got plans to spend some fun time this week with friends or families as we sort of enter into our holiday season. So today's card, and of course yesterday's one of those days too where I was fully prepared. I had everything done on Sunday for my class, so it made it very easy for me to flip over tonight to watch this. So even if you're not able to catch it live, hopefully you're able to watch it on replay, and just comment on that too if you're catching it by replay. I didn't give a lot of advance notice that I'd be going live, just that I was going to try to do it tonight. So here I am. But again, the card that I'm creating, I recently found a group on Facebook actually that focuses on simple cards that are primarily basic white cards, and I thought, wow, that's a challenge and not something I do a lot of. So I thought, all right, I'm going to make myself work a little bit for this one, and it actually was much easier than what I thought, and I've got 2 samples made up for you already, and then I'm going to show you a third variation that we're going to work through tonight on the video. And what I'm using is basically basic white cardstock. I am using the thick cardstock for my card base, the regular basic white for the layer on my cardstock, 1 color of ink, and then the cards either are featuring the Brightest Glow stamp set or the Framed and Festive stamp set, but the real star is the labels, Aglow dies, or the Twinkling Lights dies that were in the mini catalog. So let's just get the camera flipped over. We'll see how well I have things set up here. Just a moment, please. I'm going to try flipping it. You can see my messy little desk over there, and I was hoping you wouldn't see my hand, but I managed to still get my finger back there. Oh well. Let's go ahead, and hopefully that's not too bad. I think it's going to be pretty easy to fix because it's actually my phone that's probably crooked and not, well, maybe not. Maybe it's Sometimes, depending on the angle you're at, things can look different when you go to straighten them out. But I think I got it a little bit better there. All right, perfect. So, again, like I said, the stamps that we're going to be using for our sentiments include the Brightest Glow or Framed and Festive. I'm kind of turning these into sort of holiday cards. I'm actually hoping to be able to send them out because even though I make cards, I actually haven't sent any Christmas cards out in a couple of years, and I'm hoping to change that this year. So that's what I'm working on. The dies that I'm referring to, these are the Labels Aglow dies, and they're the ones that kind of came in that great big bundle of products with the Boughs of Holly Designer Series paper and that type of thing. And then it's also the Twinkling Lights dies, and specifically I'm using the tree, the snowflake, and the circle piece. These are the ones that I've used on the cards that I've created today. Let me show you real quick in the catalog where you can find. I've used these a lot. I didn't buy many of the Christmas stamp sets because I wanted to make sure I used what I had. Oh, my page is sticking together where that is, but these dies are, whoops, nope, that is the wrong page. You'd think by now that I would learn to have all of this stuff marked, and I never do. Every week I seem to be fumbling through to find the page. But it's the Christmas Lights, Lights Aglow Suite, which includes all the products that you see here, but you can also get the Stampin' Dies as 2 bundles if you wanted to do that as well. So that's what I'm using to create, actually these dies, this stamp set, and these dies to create the cards. And then the other stamp set that I'm using is part of the Framed Florets bundle and the suite of products that you can get just through the end of, through January 4th, with the understanding that some of these items are limited while supplies last, or through January 4th, whichever comes first. So I'm focusing on this Framed and Festive set of stamps in there. All right. Now let me show you the cards that I've created, and then we're going to make one of these tonight on the video. So the first card that I worked with was the one using Real Red ink, and each time I did this, you're going to see I'm kind of stepping it up just a little bit. So this is literally a 5.5 by 8.5 piece of cardstock scored at 4 1/4, and then this top layer, and again this is the thick basic white cardstock, and then this layer is a 4 by 5 1/4 piece of basic white, the regular cardstock, and I've simply used the Christmas tree die, the inside piece one, and I've run it through and die cut it. And then what I did was take the outline and cut this out to get this red behind it just as a solid Christmas tree, and I cut it off right here. Otherwise it was going to hang out over the edge and the star doesn't really show anything through. And so that's how I got the red behind my card. And I put this onto this layer using dimensionals, so that gave it a little bit of pop, and actually I thought it made the red show up just a little bit more through the Christmas tree. So I'll hold that up a little bit closer so you can see maybe what's behind it. And then I just stamped the sentiment off to the side using Real Red ink. So pretty basic. That is the first card. The second card actually features Night of Navy, and again we're supposed to, this group, the focus is kind of keeping it simple and the white space. And so on this card I used, whoops, got one of those dimensional thingies there. I used the snowflake dies, which is a 2-piece die, and this actually cuts out the snowflake, as well as when you have the 2 pieces together, it adds this detail in the center. So what I did was actually cut out one off the basic white paper like this, and then I pulled this piece out and cut out just using this one in the Night of Navy. And then what I did is put the Night of Navy into the negative space that I created, and so it's flat inside the card. And then I popped up the snowflake onto dimensionals, except that one right there is pulling out a little bit, but popped it up onto dimensionals. So again, it gave it just a little bit of depth, and it lets that Night of Navy show through in all the openings here. And then I stepped it up a little bit further by using the May the Piece of the Season, Light Your World, and May Your Year Be the Brightest. And again, it's 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4 of the thick basic white cardstock, and then a 4 by 5 1/4 piece of basic white. To do the embossing, I used my Stamparatus, and I first stamped it in Night of Navy, and then I followed up by stamping it in Versamark, and then used clear embossing powder. So I'll show you how I did that with the card we're making tonight. I've done a little bit of pre-cutting because these are really detailed dies, and sometimes there is just a little bit of punching out of little dots that you need to work with. But remember, if you save some of these funny shapes, it can make a great filler for a shaker card. And then to make our card, for the purposes of this video, I am pulling out the circle die from the Labels Aglow dies. So I'm using this big circle, and then I'm using this as a separate cut to create a space for my sentiment. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, I've got a piece of the thick basic white cardstock. I was taking pictures and I didn't take my adhesive out of here. And I just tore the cover of that. So, because I know it's going to be covered, I'm going to just flip it over and burnish it the other way, and that way I'm not wasting my cardstock, because that's going to be covered up. It won't matter. So I've got a piece of 5.5 by 8.5 cardstock, scored at 4 1/4. And then I've taken a piece of 4 1/4 by 5, no, I keep doing that, 4 by 5 1/4 piece of basic white cardstock, and I die cut it using this die. I just centered it into the middle here, and you can see this is what I'm talking about, with lots of holes to poke out, but it's really a cool look. And then I die cut this little circle out because we're going to stamp our sentiment in the middle of this, and I am going to emboss it. And I want to show you how I did that, because the feature that we're using, or the feature color tonight, is Gorgeous Grape. And so I've cut out a square that's big enough to go behind this without showing up. So that'll form our layer here. But the star of the show is this little piece right here. So let me grab my Stamparatus. And what I did to kind of know where to put my stamp, I stamped it on my paper, and then that helped me be able to line things up. That's just what worked for me. So using the Brightest Glow, I've got the Joy stamp, and I've stamped it on here. I'm going to line it up. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just eyeballing it pretty close. My fingers stick to it though, so sometimes I get a little off. Alright, so it's in that area, and I'm gonna put it on here, and that way I've got it lined up, and I know that when I put this piece down, I can have it centered on here. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of adhesive. Actually, I need a little bit more than that, and then I will just tap my finger or put it on my blue jeans to get a lot of the tack off. And I'm going to center this over that word Joy. And I kind of am looking at this 2x2 square as I'm working to center it. And then I'm just, before I ink it up, I'll bring it over and say, yep, that's where I want it. Alright, so let's get Gorgeous Grape, and we're going to get a little bit of the Versamark, And to do this, all you need to do is take your ink pad and move anything you're working on out of the way so you don't accidentally get ink on it. Okay, I'm going to flip this over. And the one thing that I did this time, because I wanted to make sure I had a pretty brilliant color here, is, you know, it's a pretty dark color, so it does it pretty well on its own. But I went ahead and inked it twice, and because I'm using my Stamparatus, I know that I'm going to get it going in the exact same spot. So I just hit it with a second layer of ink, and that made it a pretty solid sentiment image. I'm not peeling it off my Stamparatus. I'm simply using my chamois cloth to get rid of the purple ink. And with these cloths, they need to be damp, but they don't need to be super wet. And that way, when you're restamping images, you're not also getting water on there, because that can cause your ink to blur. So you want to be careful of that. And now I'm taking my Versamark pad, and this is just a clear, really sticky kind of thing. It's great for doing tone-on-tone stamping as well, but it's great for holding embossing powder. And again, it's going to line up in the same spot as it did when I was using my Gorgeous Grape. And just like with the Gorgeous Grape, I am stamping it twice. The nice thing about using Versamark is this ink takes quite a while to dry, so you don't need to rush like you do with some other colors. And so I will move this out of the way and grab my clear embossing powder. I need to find some of those little spoons so I can more easily do this and not fling powder over it like I almost did. But I'm going to cover it, and I always like to just do a second coat. Again, make sure I didn't miss any little spaces. And then I gently flick the back with my finger, but in theory this should just be on where I had the ink. I should have used my little embossing buddy to get rid of any static so that ink didn't go all over the place, but I forgot. So we should still be okay. Alright, and then I'm going to get my heat gun out here, and I do have a clothespin for little pieces like this, so I'm just going to grab that. This way I don't burn my fingers. So I'm going to turn this on. It's going to get a little bit noisy. Apologize for that. Just a moment. And it takes a minute for the heat gun to warm up, but then once it does, watch what happens with the powder. This is kind of a fun thing to watch. I'll hold it up a little bit closer. I know that means it's going to be noisier too, but it is what it is. Can you see it start to change colors? It's starting at the bottom of that J and the Y. And that's just because this powder is melting in. Isn't that cool? It never gets old for me. Never, never. Okay, and that is done. Now, one thing you want to be careful of is don't touch where you've got your ink right away after you finish embossing, because you're melting plastic. Well, I shouldn't say you're melting plastic. You're melting something. I can't tell you for sure what it is, if it's plastic or not. But it can get hot. Plus, if you touch it with your hand before it's cooled, you may smear it just a little bit, and you don't want to do that. So let's finish our card. There we go. I had to find where I set it. So we'll set that aside. And again, with this card, I'm going to pop it up because I think, let me show you, see if I can show it to you. It gives it a little bit more dimension when it's popped up, I personally think. You wouldn't have to do it though. Just an option out there for you. So what I'm going to do to adhere this is I'll take my seal And I'm going to put it in the center here. Remember, light touch, kind of a check mark. Oh, you know what? Don't pay any attention to me on that, because we're actually going to be putting that on dimensional, so I didn't need to put any of that adhesive on there. Apparently my mind is still not 100%. Alright, no big deal. So, I gotta find my dimensionals then. Here we go. And I'm going to put this piece kind of in the center here. I've already eyeballed it before, so I know where to put it. But I'm not pressing it down tight because I don't want to be off at all. And now I'm just going to fill this with dimensionals. And because I am wanting this to stand up all the way, I'm using some pieces in the center of the sides as well as the top and bottom. And you'll notice that I'm using some funny shaped ones. I believe in using every piece of my dimensional sheet, and so these are just some of the borders that I cut. Some might call it cheap, I call it frugal. I don't want to waste anything. So that's where I'm getting the funny shapes from, but it all works. So don't be afraid to do that. Get you your best value for your money on these dimensionals. Alright, then I'm just going to peel the backs off. I don't normally use this many dimensionals. I know there's a lot of people that either don't use many at all or use a ton. There doesn't seem to be much of a middle ground. And then I'm just going to center this layer onto the front of my card and just press down where I've got the dimensionals. So the reason I like this is I think it gives it a little bit more depth. Unfortunately, because I did have adhesive on here, it is sticking a little bit more than I would like it to. But c'est la vie. It is what it is. Just don't do what I just did. And then we've got our circle of joy. And again, for this, I am going to pop this one up on dimensionals. So I had one left here. I've got one piece here. Oh, look at that. I used up another little scrap. All right. And then we're just going to put this right in the center of our card. And I'm having this one be more of landscape rather than portrait style. So there you go. Quick, easy, very simple cards, very little coloring. You know, basic white, that's the star of this card. So we've got this wonderful circle, the snowflake, and our Christmas tree. Night of Navy, Real Red, and Gorgeous Grape. I will say I like the ones that have the embossed on it a little bit, just because it adds a little bit of pop to the card. But that's just me. So go ahead, give it a try. Take a look at what you've got on hand. See what happens when you try to make a simple card using basic white with just a little bit of color. And post what you do in the comments down below. I love to see what everybody creates. And if I've inspired you to create something, please share it with us, because you can help inspire others as well. If you know of anybody who might like this video, please be sure to share it with them. Otherwise, I am grateful that you took some time out of your Tuesday night to watch my Make It Monday. Have a great Thanksgiving. I hope that you have an opportunity to spend it with friends and family. And I will see you all on Monday. Thanks. Bye-bye.